particular kind of loneliness that only happens in a room full of people who already know your business. I did not have a word for it until the night I found the chat. Everyone warns you about the loud betrayals. The lipstick. The second phone. The receipt from a restaurant you were never taken to. Nobody warns you that the thing which ends it might be a group of men. Typing LMAO under a photograph of you crying. Let me back up. His name does not matter. I will call him Daniel, because that is close enough and because he would hate being made ordinary. We were together for 3 years. 2.5 of those, apparently, I was a recurring character in a comedy I had never seen. Daniel was not cruel in the way people mean when they say cruel. He remembered how I took my coffee. He drove 4 hours in bad weather when my grandmother died. He was good in the small, visible ways that other people could witness and admire. That is worth saying, because I know how this ends, and I want you to understand that I was not being stupid. I was being loved in exactly the ways that could be seen. The chat was called The Council. That was the first thing I saw. And honestly, that alone should have been enough. Grown men, a group chat, named like a tribunal. He had gotten a new phone that month, and he had done the thing everyone does, which is to let it sign him in to everything at once, on every device, including the tablet that lived on our kitchen counter, and mostly played recipes. I picked up the tablet to look up how long to rest a chicken. The chat was already open. I want to be precise about this, because people always ask whether I went looking. I did not go looking, I went looking after. The message on the screen was from Daniel, sent 11 minutes earlier, while he was in the next room watching something with the volume low. It said, "She's doing the thing again, where she reorganizes the cabinets instead of saying what's wrong. Pray for me." And underneath it, 5 replies, laughing. One of them said, "The cabinet update. Classic. The cabinet update. Classic." You have to understand what that phrase did to me, because I do reorganize the cabinets when I am upset. I have done it since I was 14 years old, in a house where saying what was wrong out loud got you something worse than being ignored. I had told him that. Once, early, at 2 in the morning, in the voice you only use when you have decided to trust someone. And he had listened, and he had held my hand, and then he had taken it downstairs to the council and given it a name. So I scrolled. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the dishwasher, and I scrolled up through 2.5 years of my own life, narrated by a man who was, at that moment, 40 feet away, laughing at a television. I found the night I did not get the job. I remembered that night as tender. I remembered him bringing me soup and telling me their loss. What I did not know was that 11 minutes before the soup, he had written, "Round 3 of the crying. Send help. She's convinced she peaked at 26. 12 laughing reactions." I found the photograph. I will not describe it in detail because it was not taken for anyone. It was taken by him. In our bed, the morning after my father's funeral, when I was asleep and my face was swollen from crying in a way that faces get when the crying has gone on for 11 hours. The caption was, "The aftermath, LOL." Somebody replied, "Bro, why?" And Daniel replied, "Because it's funny." That is the sentence I would like you to hold on to. Because it's funny. Not because I hate her. Not because I'm angry. Not because I'm hurting, and I don't know where to put it. Because it's funny, I stopped scrolling around 1 in the morning. Not because I had reached the end, there was no end. There was just more, going back and back. A steady, cheerful, well-lit record of a man taking the softest parts of me and turning them into a bit that reliably got him between 6 and 14 laughing reactions. I stopped scrolling because I had found the message from our anniversary. I had spent a month planning it. He had told the council that he had an obligation Saturday and asked if anyone wanted to get drinks after. An obligation. I put the tablet face down. I remember thinking, very calmly, that I should be screaming, and that I was not, and that this was probably something I would have to deal with later. Then I went into the living room, and I asked him to pause it. He paused it. He looked up at me with real, genuine warmth. And this is the part that took me the longest to make peace with. He looked genuinely happy to see me. That is not a man who thinks he is doing something wrong. That is a man who has never once run the sentence through the filter of, what if she saw this? I said, what's the council? And here is where I expected the lie. I had braced for it, I had rehearsed my responses to it in the 7 minutes it took me to stand up. He did not lie. He said, "Oh, did you see something on the tablet? Babe, it's just the guys. It's venting. Everyone does it. Everyone does it." I said, "You posted a picture of me asleep after my dad's funeral." And he said, "And I need you to hear the tone, because the tone is the whole story." He said it the way you explain. Something obvious to someone being difficult on purpose. He said, "It was affectionate, affectionate." I asked him what was affectionate about because it's funny. He said I was taking it out of context. I asked him what the context was. He said, "You're really going to go through my phone and then be mad at me?" And there it was, the pivot. The one they all know without being taught. Suddenly the thing that happened is not the 2.5 years of contempt. It is my failure to be polite about discovering it. I said, "I want to understand something. When you called me, crying after your mother's diagnosis, did you tell them about that too?" He said, "That's different." And it was. Of course it was. I never once made his fear into content. I never gave his worst hour a nickname. I never had a room of 6 people waiting for the next installment of the funniest thing about him. I did not throw anything. I did not cry in front of him, which I am, in a small and petty way, still proud of. I said, "You didn't make a joke. You made an audience." He said he would leave the chat. He actually said that like it was a concession, like the group was the problem, like the men were the ones who had gone into my childhood and come out with a punchline. I said, "That's not the part that's broken." I stayed with my sister for 11 days. He sent 41 messages. Most of them were about how he had never cheated, which I found fascinating. That his defense was a list of the ways he had not hurt me, as though there were only one door into a person and he had never used it. The one that finally did it came on day 9. It said, "I never said anything to them I wouldn't say to your face." And I sat with that, and I realized it was true. That was the whole tragedy in one sentence. He would have said it to my face. He did say it to my face. In the living room, when he told me it was affectionate. The chat wasn't him betraying his real self. The chat was his real self, with better lighting. People ask me if I regret scrolling. They mean it kindly. They mean, wouldn't it have been easier to have never known? But that is the thing about that kind of loneliness. It does not start the moment you find the chat. It starts years earlier, in a room where you are being loved in front of witnesses, and quietly filed away for later. I did not lose him that night. I found out I had never had him.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, do me one favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment it drops. Remember, nothing is ever just what it seems. See you on the next one.